السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم everybody. How are you يا أخوان؟ يا إخوان كيف الحال؟ إن شاء الله كله تمام. حياك الله brother Yusuf is waiting since the beginning. السلام عليكم brothers. Don't forget to hit the share button. Smash that button guys. Come on. Like like I was really suffering to gather the 4 of the brothers together in one day. Like I was working on that since 3 weeks maybe. You know? Thank you for joining us, Daniel. You're almost welcome on my channel.
Jazakallah khair. Happy to be here.
Barakallah feek. It is a hot topic today, but nobody's talking about it actually. Like nobody's talking about the dropping of the Muslim birth rate, like internationally and in the Arabic countries as well. Like, why do you think nobody's noticing that at all?
Well, I think people notice it. Muslims notice it in their individual lives. Like they compare how many children they have, for example, compared to how many their parents had. You know, for example, my grandfather had 20 children from 2 wives.
MashaAllah.
And my father had 3. I have 4, but I, was really trying to have more. And then, so I don't know, like, how many children my kids will have, how many grandchildren I'll have, Allahu A'lam. But many Muslims, like you look at the previous generation in America, the immigrants who came, they would have 9 or 10 children, and then their children only maybe have 1 or 2.
They've I have no sound, guys. Give me a second. I need to figure this out.
We hear you loud and clear, by the way. Okay. Maybe he's not hearing us. Okay.
Yeah, so it's you can notice the dropping fertility. Fertility rate basically means how many children per person. How many?
Yeah. On individual level, yeah, you can do that, but like you will never recognize like how does that really harming the ummah like on collective level, because you might say, yeah, my father and me we're doing that, but like my uncle have 7 children and my cousin have 5, so we're okay. Like we have some drops there, like some rising there, but until you read like the accurate data, and you will be shocked. Like in the 60s in my country in Jordan, like the average birth per woman was around 8 children. 8 children per one woman. That's the average. So it is very regular to have 10 children, like from one wife. So that was in the 60s and 70s. But nowadays, it is around like 3 or like 2.7, 2.8. So the drop is really huge, like in a short period of time, which is 40 to 50 year. So when you read the actual data, you will understand how really this is harming the whole like Islamic ummah. And when people actually like know the numbers about the growth of the Muslim population overall, they do not differentiate between the growth of conversion, like people converting into Islam, and the birth rate. So if you look at the number as wholesome, you will, oh yeah, we are growing. But you do not differentiate between the birth rate and the conversion. Most of people don't. What do you think, bro?
Yeah, I think that the conversion rate is high for Islam, but the bigger factor is the birth rate. That's the fertility rate is going to have more of a difference for the overall population. And I mean, you have to look at conversion into Islam, and then you have to look at people leaving Islam or they are no longer affiliated with Islam. So these all are demographic factors that we have to look at.
Exactly. Barakallah feek, Yusuf. That's super sticker for $10. Jazakallah khair. طيب. First of all, guys, like I want to give you a small introduction about the subject that we are talking about here. We are still waiting for two brothers, which is Abu American and Mahdi Tidjani. Like he gonna join a little bit late, but he's joining inshallah. Uh, okay. The Muslim population, by the way, there's a good news because everybody think that we are as internationally Muslim population is 1.8 billion. So like I heard some people say like we are 1.5 or 1.6 billion. No, actually the 2021 data confirms that we are 1.97. We are almost 2 billion guys on this
Oh,
planet, and like percentage wise we are 24.7, like almost the quarter of the planet are Muslims. that's
mashallah.
incl- yeah, that's including Shia and Sunnah, by the way, but like around 90% of them are Sunnah. So
Mm,
90% of the 2 billion are Sunnah. That's very updated data. Like
mm,
that shocked me. Like I thought we are 1.8, but no, 1.97 million billion, sorry.
mm. Yeah, mashallah. So this is, and the biggest loss, people leaving a religion is Christianity. They're
Hmm.
losing the most numbers, and they're also their fertility is very low. So in some countries in the West, it's below fertility levels, but also in Latin America, the fertility is decreasing as well in other parts of the Christian world.
Hmm. Hmm. Actually, like these numbers from United Kingdom like shocked me a little bit. So in United Kingdom, in London and Wales, like to be more specific, around 10% of kids under 5 years old are Muslims. 10% of kids under 5 years old are Muslims, while 0.5% of the people over 80 are Muslims.
Mm,
So the majority of the Muslim population in London and Wales are young, are young. When it's 10% of people of kids under 5, that's more percentage than the Muslim population itself to the country as whole. So Muslims are having more baby than the other religions and non-religious like groups. The Muslim families birth rate in is double than the general population in United Kingdom. They have the double of the regular birth rate in United Kingdom, and 50% of Muslim population is under 25. 50% of them is under 25. That's great. Like on civilization level or on population level, that's great if half of Muslims is under 25. What do you think? Like, did you hear any of these numbers, Daniel, before?
yeah, yeah. These are often numbers that are often put out by other groups. Maybe Muslims are not talking about these numbers too much, but you see a lot of other groups talking about it, about the demographics. So in Europe especially, but also America, they talk about Muslim demographics because they're worried that Muslims are going to take over, quote unquote.
Mhm.
And they say that, well, why can't we be like Muslims? So some of the conservatives or even some white nationalists, they will
Mhm.
say that, look, we are dying as a civilization because we can't even reproduce at a replacement level. But Muslims, look, this is their fertility rate. They are having more and more children. How
Mhm.
50% of people under 25 are Muslim in their countries and so forth. So this is something that they are worried about. They're very scared about.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Most of them, as like we was discussing before, and that shocked me actually, because I never like heard about this. Like I'm not on that side of the internet. Today I found it out, which is like the Hindus in India are like worried a lot. about the growth of Muslim population in India. And that shocked me. Like I found hundreds of articles speaking about the danger of growing Muslims and they're gonna take over the country by their population, and like this is warning and we should do something about it. Like they are very scared.
Yeah, they're worried about losing control. They're worried about losing power in India. So they have this term called love jihad. Love jihad meaning that Muslim men are converting Hindu women into Islam, and or marrying them and then having Muslim children with Hindu women. So they consider this like a kind of terrorism. So many of this very sensitive, where Muslims are being lynched if they're suspected of even talking to Hindu women or any kind of relation with Hindu women. The Hindu mob will lynch the Muslim who is suspected of this, kill him, and so forth. So that's a big issue in India. They want to, because they're trying to ethnically cleanse Muslims in many, over the entire country, but in specific parts of India, like Assam, they are ethnically cleansing Muslims.
Everybody was asking about Mahdi. Where is Mahdi? Coach Kareem, do you see Mahdi? Where is Mahdi? Here is Mahdi, guys. I brought him for you.
How are you doing? ما شاء الله. داريور.
السلام عليكم.
كوتش كريم. سلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف الحال يا اخوان؟
الحمد لله رب العالمين. Where are you يا أخي? Everybody was asking.
Yeah, I took some time away. I actually released my first video in a while yesterday. And I might as well say it again here as well. I had some things going on at home, and I didn't feel comfortable coming out here on social media, proselytizing almost, when the affairs in my own household needed taking care of. So I decided to step away and handle the business in my household before I come back out here on social media again. Alhamdulillah, things are a little bit better. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah. People miss you, Akhi. I found out
Jazakallah khair. I appreciate it.
Really
pleasure
people
to
miss
be
you.
here, Akhi.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah. We're talking about the Muslim population in general, Mahdi, and let me give you a quick brief. We're talking about the Muslim population in general internationally, the main growth depending on two factors, which is the birth rate among Muslims and the conversion from other religions into Islam. And I mentioned that
Ikhwan,
in United...
I'm having a technical problem with my phone. I can hardly hear you. I'm going to open up my iPad and join you again. Okay?
Okay.
Good.
Okay. طيب, getting back to the main subject, that was in United Kingdom, and let me share the screen of this.
One question.
Small study. Yeah, go ahead.
One question we should ask is, you have some Muslims who are saying, "Oh well, what's wrong with having no children or having a very few children? Is there something wrong in Islam? Or are we encouraged in Islam to have many children?"
That's a great question, actually.
Yeah.
So you want to elaborate on that? I wanted to leave it to the end.
Oh, okay. I don't want to mess up your plan, but
that's okay. It's a great question, actually. Because I saw some Muslims who call themselves anti-reproducing people, which is we call it in Arabic لا إنجابيين. They don't believe that we should reproduce, because we are infecting this planet and draining the resources, and there is no more resources for all of these people. So we should calm down and stop reproducing.
Yeah, so this is what they're saying, but this is going contrary to Sunnah and contrary to even the advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Tazawwajul al-wadud wal-walud." The one who is wadud and the one who is walud. Wadud meaning loving. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, marry those who are loving, and walud means fertile. So, or ones who are, they can have many children. So this is the direct advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's saying that he'll be proud of our numbers of the ummah, and that we'll have the biggest ummah on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So when the Prophet ﷺ is telling this to Muslims, and he's saying tazawwaju, then that's a command, that's amr.
Yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't mean that everyone is forced, like it's wajib in fiqh, so you have to have as many children as possible. But this is like something that is mustahab, it's something according to the sunnah, especially if you have the right intention, then Allah will reward that for your niyyah, that you want to make the Prophet ﷺ happy, you want to make him proud, you want to, you know, and which Muslim doesn't want to do that? So to the best of your ability to have children, this is something highly encouraged in Islam, and it's coming directly is related to love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Mahdi, we mentioned, by the way, in the United Kingdom that 10% of kids under 5 years old are Muslim, and 0.5% of people over 80 are Muslim, like very few old people as Muslim, and a lot of kids under 5, and 50% of Muslim population is under 25 years old.
Wow.
That's in United Kingdom, specifically in London and Wales.
I might have had something to do with that, with my 8 kids.
MashaAllah.
I mean, look, Muslims coming over to the UK is a relatively new thing. By new, I mean 70 years old, 60, 70 years old. And that doesn't really come as a surprise to me, because the first generation immigrants who came, they are having their children, and their children are now having their own children as well. And slowly they will reach that age of 80 plus, but the younger kids are now pushing through. So that doesn't really come as a surprise to me. What is interesting though, and I want to pick your brain, Daniel, haqiqatu on this as well, is I've spoken to a few brothers, practicing brothers, mashallah, yani they know their deen and everything. And their response to children surprises me, but there is some logic to it. So one brother, he's a practicing brother, he's a knowledgeable brother, yani you could classify him as a student of knowledge, definitely talibul ilm, okay? And he said to me, he is reluctant to have more than 3 children. He said maximum 5, but I'm reluctant to have more than 3. And this came as a surprise to me. And he said to me, look, the reason being is each one costs me X amount of thousands of pounds a year to put in Islamic school, X amount of thousands of pounds for their jiu-jitsu, for this, that, and the third. And I want to be able to give my children the best start, Islamic start, to life in this non-Muslim country as possible. Now, obviously, the more kids you have, the more your resources wear thin. What's your response to this, Brother Daniel?
I mean, this is going contrary to Quran even, because we know that Allah says, do not kill your children out of fear for poverty in Surah Al-Isra, ayah 31. Yeah, so this is, and that's, rizq is coming with children. So this is something that anyone who is a parent knows, that when you have a child or you're expecting a child, suddenly all kinds of rizq, all kinds of you get a promotion in your job, or you get a new business deal. Suddenly the doors start opening for you of rizq, of income, when you're expecting a child. And I've experienced this with every single child, alhamdulillah. So Allah is the one who is providing. It's not you as a father who is providing for your children. Allah is providing for them. So we can't have this attitude that, oh, well, my resources are getting thin. No, this is not a valid excuse not to have more children.
Abu American, salam alaikum wa rahmatullah, akhi.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Had some technical difficulties, but I'm here, and I was sick as a dog earlier.
How's your health? Like, hope everything is getting better.
Man, I felt like I got ran over by 4 trucks earlier, but
that's harsh.
Went to the hospital, and they gave me some, like, you know, some wicked beds, and so I'm like, you know, I'm like.
Okay. Like, may Allah bless you with health and strength, inshallah.
Amen. Brother Daniel, to continue that thread of conversation then, what is an ideal number? When I say ideal, I mean, yani, can we quantify it? And if so, what is the ideal number from a Sunnah perspective of having many children? Where does one say, you know what, I did my part?
I think the limiting factor is you have to be honest. Am I really doing a good job raising these children? Because if you're having children and you're not giving them the attention, or you're not providing them the environment where they can thrive and become strong Muslims, then you are not necessarily helping the ummah. If you're just raising children or having children that eventually will leave Islam, especially if you're in the West, especially if you, and it's not really in the West, even in the East, if you have to, you have so many children that you can't give them attention, you have to just sit them in front of the TV or give them the iPad, for the iPad to raise your children, then this is a recipe for disaster. This is not really going to help the ummah. I think that as long as you can have children and dedicate the time and their energy and the resources to raise them as strong believers, okay, then keep having more. Sometimes marrying, you marry a second wife for the purpose that, okay, now there's two women.
Our brother here.
Yeah,
He's
mashallah,
practicing
we know, mashallah. So then more adults to help raise strong Muslim children.
But then I take us back to our original point. And I'm essentially with you, Akhi. I have, alhamdulillah, many children. But I take you back to our original point. And you mentioned one of the factors that it hinges upon is, are you able to provide them with the right environment? A lot of that is connected to rizq. So someone could come back and say to you, okay, but if I have many children, I don't have enough to be able to provide for them. Or are you saying, have the children and then Allah will provide for you?
Yeah, have the children, Allah will provide for you. That's actually a means. Some of the brothers, their tawakkul is their reliance on Allah is at such a level that they'll say, okay, I want to get that better job. Let me have a child. Where's my wife? Let me have a child. And then that's going to help me in the future. Allah is going to provide the rizq. So they have that kind of mentality.
But by the way, I have my own explanation from behavioral psychological point of view, explaining this actually. But I want to give you that information. I don't know if you heard it. Like I said it in the beginning, Mahdi and Abu American, mashallah. Like depend on latest update on numbers on 2021. Muslims around the world are 1.97 billion, like we're almost 2 billion, 24.7, almost quarter of the planet are Muslims. Like that's updated numbers.
Mashallah. Let me throw something else inside here, though. We also have to think about, like, it's not only a matter of risk. I've noticed this in myself. Like, I've gotten older. Obviously, I'm 49. It's a matter of also energy. You can keep having kids, but if you don't have energy, and I just work like an animal right now. And so, when I come home, I totally deprogram, and I feel like, I don't know if it's correct, but I just feel like they don't get the energy that my previous children got. And so that right there is something you have to look at also. Do you have the actual capacity, physically and mentally, after coming from, like, maybe you get increased risk, but then you also I've got significantly increased risk, but then I've also taken on a higher mental load with that. Because with that increased risk becomes increased responsibility. I work from my phone. I work from home. I have a laptop from work. I come here. So you have to also think about that also. Do you have that capacity inside of you? Now you have the money, but do you have the personal capacity and the energy for it? This is something to think about. This is something I've noticed recently. I'm not too pleased with myself in it. I be totally transparent and fair about it. They're not doing bad, but it's just like, I just don't feel like, when it came down to my twins, who were my firstborn, I don't feel like my current kids get the same attention and time that they did, simply because I just don't have the energy and the strength anymore.
Wallahi, I can relate to this, Abu American. I mean, I've had kids since the age of 17, and I haven't basically stopped up until now. And there is no doubt that I held especially my first two sons, to a much higher degree of accountability and strictness, if you like, than I have with, you could say, my last two children, my son and my daughter. There's no doubt about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because you get relaxed, you get a bit comfortable. I don't know what it is.
I might be able to answer that. You know what happened? I mean, obviously I have 9 kids, and my first 6 were very close together. So what happened was, for me, I don't know if this is the case for you, but my first 2, I put a lot of work and energy into them. So when my daughter was born, she already had an example to follow in terms of the children. You see, because she would spend a lot of time with the boys. And so they already knew what you could do, what you couldn't do, how you could behave, how you couldn't behave. And she emulated that. And all the subsequent children emulated them. And so it kind of front loaded all your work. If you did your work, if you did it properly at the start, then the other kids that came along, as long as you kept having kids close together or relatively close together, the job was sort of like self-managing. Me, now I've had a huge break between my children. I now have 2 small children. It's like starting over from zero. And I see that, my daughter, who is a year younger than my son, looks at her brother, you see, but he didn't get the same energy as the twins did. You see what I mean? So now I have to front load the work again, if I want to keep on having kids. So I think that might be what it is. We got relaxed because it became easy because we did the work early. You front loaded your work and it became easy. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
that's an interesting point about American, because even in an organization, in a business, you want to duplicate yourself as quickly as possible. You can't be the one doing all the work. You can't have one guy doing all the work. He's only got 24 hours in a day. He needs to find a way to make 240 hours in a day. How does he do that? By finding 10 people who can replicate him as quickly as possible. So maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with the audience now. I feel a lot of guilt, and I think a lot of parents can relate to this. I feel a lot of parental guilt, and I think a lot of parents can relate to that I always feel like I'm not doing enough for my kids. And especially when I compare.
That's good motivation, by the way.
Yeah, but especially when I compare to how I was before. And but maybe it's not so much a bad thing if you have duplicated yourself well enough, or maybe I'm just making excuses.
Yeah. Let me, excuse me, guys. Let me take this super chat away. Abdul Jabbar, Barakallah Feek, Jazakallah Khair in the beginning. I'm so happy to see you together, mashallah. Question: do you think scamdemic frack scene have something to do with making Muslim women infertile? This is this is highly censored question. So I will give you a small briefing without mentioning the actual words. Yes, but it is not toward Muslims. It harm all human female. Like it's not conspiracy theory against only Muslim women. No, it affects everyone. But I'm not gonna go deep in that. That's because that may censor like this
you
video
can get a
on my
strike on your
channel.
channel. Don't touch
Yes.
the COVID topic. You'll get a strike on your channel. I got
But
my first and only strike was because of the COVID topic. So
your boy Elon, he put a tweet out a few months ago saying that the greatest threat to humanity is depopulation, not AI. Depopulation.
I shared that like on the shorts on my
at this
channel.
moment in time. His opinion
translated. I translated to Arabic.
Humanity is not reproducing enough. That was his tweet.
Yeah, I got a lot of stats and number guide. Like if I may share with you, I want to share this one. This one is important. Do you see it like clearly, guys? It is a study, and these numbers are like the TFR, which is the total fertility rate for Muslims and non-Muslims in 24 countries in Europe. Okay, that's based on census and survey data, which is divided by country, which is like Spain, Finland, Sweden, France, Denmark, Belgium, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Norway, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, Bulgaria, Greece, Ukraine, Ireland, Georgia, Albania, Macedonia, Romania, Czech Republic, and Russia, Hungary, and Bosnia. Like, if you watch carefully, guys, the minimum birth rate to sustain the to maintain the civilization is 2.1 child for woman. 2.1 to maintain, not to grow the civilization, to maintain it as it is. There's no growth. To maintain it as it is 2.1, and 2.1 is here. 2.1 is here. Look at the countries in general. Like in Spain, it is good. All of it is good until we reach this point, which is Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, yeah, the Muslim birth rate is higher than the non-Muslim birth rate, but it is under the minimum. In Bulgaria, Greece, Ukraine, Ireland, Georgia, Albania, Macedonia, and Romania, Czech Republic, Russia, Hungary, and Bosnia. All of these countries, the vast majority of them, if you hear that Muslim birth rate, like Muslim are having more babies than non-Muslim, that's right, but they're not having more enough. Such as Spain, for example, like for the averages in Spain for the general public is 1.5 almost, or 1.4. For Muslims, it's 4 kids. That's great. That's great. In Finland, it is 3.4 almost for Muslim, but for the other citizens is 1.9. It is less than the minimum rate. So, getting back to your question, Mahdi, that was a great question, which is like, how do I know? Like, am I doing good? Like from this perspective, and I believe, like my own conclusion, if you want to do your obligation toward Ummah as a man and as a woman, you both have to have 3 baby at least, 3 childs at least. Why? Because you want the Islamic Ummah, the Islamic population to grow. If you want it to grow, you can't have 2. 2 is declining. 2 is declining.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You have to
Some
have
kids die, people die.
3 or 4. Yeah, 3 or 4. 3 or more, I mean. 3 or more. At least 3. What do you think, Daniel? Like, does that does that make sense?
Are you mean like if all else being equal, you don't have any health problem, you don't have any, because different people have
general.
We don't want to shame anyone if they don't have that number, or make him feel like they are doing something haram or they're not satisfactory from an Islamic perspective. We don't want to give that impression. So we just want to say that if you can aim for 3, then definitely, why not? If you can aim for 4, if you can aim for 5, why not? Given that you can meet the requirements, you can meet your responsibility. So when it comes to your responsibility for marriage, for example, this is something different. Like that, it's interesting when you look at hadith. There is not an encouragement in the same way that, just get married and you'll get rizq just by getting married. Like, get a second wife and rizq will come. The same kind of thing is not said for wives as there is for children. For children, the rizq will come for having more children. This is something that is promised, that we're promised by Islam. But for getting more wives, so when you want to get a second wife or a third wife, you have to consider your financial status. Can you actually meet your responsibilities? A big part of being married as a man is you have these financial obligations. And if you do not meet those financial obligations, then you're committing dhulm and you're actually gaining sins. You're sinful before Allah. But with having children, it's not the same calculation. What are the responsibilities that you have as a father for having more children? Allah is already saying that you don't have to worry about the rizq. Allah is providing the rizq, and your rizq will actually increase with more children. So what other responsibilities are there? Well, there's tarbiyah. Tarbiyah is one of the main responsibilities of being a father. Can you provide that? And if you cannot, then why not? Are you going to is it because of just laziness? Is it because of what? What's the reason? And that's, once you determine the answer to that, then why not aim for more and more children as you are able to raise properly?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
question for you, Daniel. I'm going to play devil's advocate because I've had this thrown back at me, even from certain members of my own family. And that is it not better to have 1, 2, or 3 children who become, I don't know, Hafiz al-Quran, Muhaddith, fill in the blank, doctor, engineer, you fill in the blank, as opposed to having 15 children, all of whom become nobodies?
Nobody
when you consider that, of course, okay, if we have to think with the logically, and I understand that you have to have a leap of faith in your iman with regards to the risk that comes from having children, but in their logical minds, they are thinking, how can I make 15 doctors? How can I send 15 children to private school? How can I pay for 15 jiu-jitsu classes a month and swimming and all the rest of it, and so on and so forth?
No, like you're kind of mixing jujitsu with like becoming a father of
Extracurricular
Quran.
stuff. معناتها يعني extracurricular stuff, I'm saying.
No, like what you want to raise children well. The whole goal of you as a parent is to make your children believers in Allah, to have strong iman, to have strong worship of Allah, to be awliya, to be at that level. That's the goal. That's the desire of every Muslim parent. Why? Because you want to be in Jannah yourself. You want to be with your children in Jannah. And when you pass away, you want your pious children to be making dua for you and asking for your forgiveness. This is the goal of every Muslim parent. Doctor, okay, that's great. Engineer, that's great. Jiu-jitsu master, jiu-jitsu master, that's great too. But that's not the goal. So if you can raise 3 scholars of Islam or huffaz or awliya that are the true worshippers of Allah, that's better than 15 nobodies. Nobody in the sense that they don't have any connection to Islam. They barely know, La ilaha illallah. Yeah, that's better. That's an easy answer.
But I'm just curious, where does this idea come of mutual exclusivity in this, that a person can't have large sums of children and at the same time have quality? I mean, is that the case? I mean,
well, okay. My sister asked me an interesting question the other day. She said to me, Mahdi, do you have a as intimate relationship with your children, because I have now the 8th one on the way, alhamdulillah. Do you have an intimate relationship with all your kids as you would have if you had just 1 or 2? And I sat and thought about it, and the logical answer is, I gave her a story. I said, you know what? I have a friend. His name is, I'm actually not going to say his name, and he has just 1 son. And this son came through great difficulty as well. I mean, him and his wife went through great difficulty for her to conceive. And she's never able to conceive again. Wallahu a'lam.
Ooh.
And this 1 son, the way he talks about him, subhanAllah, it's like he would lift up, he would turn the world over for him. He would take a life in an instant. You can tell there's a certain level of energy there, because literally all of his eggs are in one basket, quite literally. Getting married again is not on the cards for him. For whatever reason, he's not interested in that, whatever. So he has just 1 son. Am I saying that having 1 child isn't ideal? Certainly not. Even as Coach Kareem has pointed out, if everyone had just 1 child, then we'd go extinct. But there is something to be said about the more children you have, the more your attention is definitely spread between all of them. I have to consciously, when I have all my kids with me, I have to consciously make an effort and remind myself, Mahdi, you need to take Joadia out for a walk on her own. She needs that time with you. You need to take Kareem out. He needs that time. Because I see them vying and fighting for my attention. And sometimes, because some of them are very young, they'll cause a tantrum or have a hissy fit to get that attention from you. And my mum even points this out. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to take this one. Let me go and get dessert with this one. Let me take that one to the park. Just that alone time, every now and again, it helps to top it up. But what's my point is I have to be conscious of this all the time, because spreading that attention between all of them, it doesn't work on its own without that individual quality time every now and again as well. That's been my experience.
Okay, I have 2 points actually. Let me break this down, because in the modern world, we are bombarded with this emotional bonding crap between the man and the children. That's totally BS. You know why? Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid, he had 9 wives, unknown number of concubines, and 40 children. He spent half of his life over the horse, fighting. He was the greatest warrior ever known in Islam. So, does he have does his children have emotional defect because they are not spending time with their father? We've been taught since the beginning of 80s 90s, it started until this day, that there is emotional bonding should be there and you should spend more time with your children. No, it is not. The father role is not the same as the mother role. They need that from their mother. They don't need that from their father.
Can I agree and disagree?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
I think the formative years, especially the early years when they're very young, they need to spend a lot of time with their mother. I think the older children get, the more they need to spend time. And even boys and girls. I mean, this is both. I think they need to spend more time with their fathers. To know derogatory or whatever intentions intended, but just women are more emotional. They can deal with children and their emotional temper tantrums and whatnot that they go through in a far better way than we can as men, because women have a far more emotional worldview than we do, and so it's easier for them to understand young children, which is probably why young children tend to have a proclivity towards women, and women have a proclivity towards them, not only because they have kids. And then when the children get older, and then they really need to start looking at the world and the world for what it really is, and how it really is. You don't get that anywhere else except from your father or the man. Not saying that women don't have a real perspective on the world, but it's just we know that there's no what's the word?
As guidance, you mean?
Yeah. Let's not drag us into a different topic, but we know that the world has no mercy on you as a man.
Yeah.
And so when it comes down to discipline, which you're going to need, to practice Islam or anything else in the world, you get that from your father. And to go back to what you were saying about multiple kids, I just want to give an example for myself. Now, my first 6 children, they're the brainiacs. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to say that. Well, no, I guess I have to say it. My parental investment it seemed like it was higher than it is now, simply because, like I said, I have a different career now, more work, more money, etc. But it's kind of eaten into my ability to actually be a different way. So I don't know. So now I'm dealing with 2 children as opposed to 6, and I feel like I'm doing a worse job. So I'm not really sure that there's any sort of exclusive, mutual exclusivity in terms of the number of children versus the quality that you're going to invest in them. You have to look at there's a book, it's called R/K selection theory. It's a political book, but the science in it is just unbelievable. And if you read this book, it talks about 2 different reproductive strategies: R strategy and K strategy. And K strategy, it doesn't matter. One thing they shoot down or they shoot at or take pot shots at is R selected reproductive methods, where they have large numbers of children but low parental investment. But with K selected, you can have large numbers of children just as long as your parental investment is also high. I don't think there's any sort of mutual exclusivity in here. I actually think this is why I mentioned that earlier. It's what kind of energy do you have to actually invest in these children? When you're young, and people, I think they do it backwards. They say you shouldn't have kids when you're young. That's when you have the most energy. It's when you have the most energy to actually, deal with a lot of children. It's just, unfortunately, we've extended in the 21st century, and the 20th and the 21st century, we've extended adolescence. And so now we have adults that are technically adolescents. Having them have kids is kind of a problem. But in the past, what did we see? We saw 16-year-olds conquering half the planet. They were leading armies and whatnot. So.
And that's a good segue, actually, to take, just to rewind it back a little bit of America and that. I fundamentally agree with you, Coach Kareem, about, the example you used of Khalid ibn Walid and so on. There's one difference, though, that we're missing, and that is we had the village. You heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. We had the village in those times. One of the consequences that we have paid for technological advancement is the destruction of the village. I don't know how it's like in the Arab world, but speaking for in the West, there's no village. There is no village. Your child is raised by the iPad or by YouTube or by school or by TV or by the billboards with the adverts. That's the village. So maybe in that time when there was no warfare, or at least that psychological warfare on a child was much less, to a much lesser degree, maybe that could have worked. Now, however, especially when the kids reach a certain age, puberty, there's no father in their life to straighten them out. Believe me, they're going to go far, far
Yeah,
away because the
yeah,
mother can't
agreed,
straighten them for the most part.
agreed. Uh, Newham saying on the topic of the emotional bonding, Andrew Tate mentioned this and said it's more important
Yeah.
to have a strong impact rather than spending time. And I totally agreed with what Tate said. I listened to him. He said it is quality over quantity. Quality over quantity. There is a stay-at-home dad, but he's not leading by example of being a man.
Mm.
if your if your child like raising and seeing you spending 5 to 6 hours every day with him and 12 hours in home, so you're not giving him a great example of being a man. Because what being a man is, you have to go out to conquer the world, to go back to rest and see your children for a little bit. And
Mm.
they have to adapt that's what men do. Men do not stay in home with me. Men go out and conquer the world, grab some money, go and fight the life in general. So that's what they're doing. You're leading by example. And the need like for the father, I totally agree with you guys. Like it raises step by step while they are raising over puberty, especially
Mm.
like when they come towards puberty and they are crossing the puberty line. Like it means like they need their father more and more, especially the male children. What do you think, Daniel?
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I agree with what Abu American and Brother Mahdi were saying, that in these times you have to have a lot of father's involvement, because the idea about it takes a village is there, but also just having your family around, like your grandfather, like the children's grandfather, their grandparents, uncles. Um, uh, those are very important male influence for children, not just the father. So it's not only because I think many studies have shown that not having a male role model has disastrous results for both male sons and daughters, but they actually have to play a part in the child's life. You know, that fatherly figures, or that male figure. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the father. What about the grandfather?
Mm.
What about the if the example that you want to give of Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, or going and conquering the world, or going and traveling for long amounts of time? Okay, that's for some people that's what's required. So then what happens to the children at home? Are they going to be growing up without a male influence? No, their
Mm.
grandfather will be there, their uncles will be there, their other in-laws will be there. That's the male influence that allows this kind of best of both worlds, the best of men going out into the world and doing what they need to do, taking care of business, conquering, so forth. But also there's still the male influence in the household from extended family, if the father is not able to do that. In the West, you see the worst of all worlds. The men are not going to doing any conquering. They're in fact becoming less and less competent, many men. And then the children also are at home and they're being raised by the iPad. They don't have any male influence from their father, let alone grandfather, let alone uncles. So these are two very contrasting models, and the results speak for themselves.
Mm.
But do you agree with me? It is quality over quantity. Like you don't need to spend, for example, 5 hours with each child every day.
That's
you
impossible.
think it's
That's an
impossible.
extreme dichotomy. That's an extreme dichotomy. Yani, if you're working full time, never mind if you're trying to become an above average man. If you're just the average man working full time, where are you going to get that time from? You'll be lucky to get an hour. You know, you'll be lucky to get an hour.
Yeah, I remember my dad. Like I used to see him back days, like around half hour or 1 hour when he come back home, like in the middle of the night before I sleep for half hour or 1 hour. Like, how are you doing? How's things? Like, do you need help? You face anything? You're good. Go and sleep. That's it. And like in the weekend, for example, he's not working. Oh, he will spend some time with us, but it never been like 2 or 3 or 4 hours like playing with us all day. No, no, no. Like imagine like some dads are traveling a lot. Like one of them is my dad when I was young. Like sometimes I didn't see him for like 1 month or 40 days. So like, am I gonna be so vulnerable, like to broke down if I didn't see him for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks? No, that's okay. That's okay. That's taught me to be tough. And he was depending on me since I was very young. Like, you're the man
Did
of
you
the
have
home.
uncles
Take care
around
of
you,
them.
or did you have any male members of your extended family that you were
Yeah,
able to
yeah, of course, but they're not intervening directly with our family. Like, they're there. Like, if we need them, they're there.
Yeah.
But like
the bottom line is this:
that's
the
man
other
needs to
thing,
be
that's
present in
toughening
some.
you up. That's what I mean, Mahdi.
A male influence needs to be present in some way, shape, or form. Because we all know the disastrous consequences of children being raised in single mother households. This is an old topic. We don't need to go back over there again. So the male presence is important. And one thing I will say with Andrew Tate is this. You know, I actually enjoy his videos. I think he's got an infectious personality, is the word. Yeah, he's infectious. But you have to be careful with his videos, okay? Because he does something, and he's spoken about this before, and it's important to note. He speaks with a tone of irrevocable authority, and you'll see it. He places seeds of doubt into the minds of his detractors, even when they actually have a point, simply because of the way he says it. And he said this before. He said, I say things with such exaggeration, such vehemence, that I can literally infect you with my belief. That's it. So you do have to be careful when listening to individuals. Like, it's actually, now, all right, let me choose my words carefully. He's not a charlatan. I'm not saying he's a charlatan, but this is actually one of the tools of the charlatan, which is to infect you with their conviction. So you have to be careful when hearing people who speak with such extreme vehemence and no room for maybe it's this, maybe it's that, because they literally infect you with their way of thinking. And I'm not saying I disagree. I fundamentally agree with you, Bisaraha.
I think that what you're talking about, or what you're speaking against, is true. Like this model of because it comes from feminism, that the husband or the father has to be like a second mother and has to be playing with the baby. And I think we can agree with that. But at a certain point, for both boys and girls, especially as they get older, they get to 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, then they really need the influence of their father and the involvement of their father. The other factor that is different between now and in the past is that most people didn't work for an employer. They worked for themselves. They had their own business. And when you have your own business, then it's natural that you want your children to come and help you in that business. And so that naturally results that when the child is 10 years old, 11 years old, he's going to be with his dad because they're both going to be working on the farm, for example, or they're both going to be working in trade. And that's how the child, you know, you're a man, you have a son, you're not going to go send him to work for another man. You're going to want your son to work for you or work with you towards your family business. That was the predominant model of making a living prior to the spread of like wage labor and employer-employee that came only in the past 200 years. And even now in the Muslim world, it's spreading, but even a generation or 2 generations ago, most people are having their own family kind of business. And only if you're very poor, you have to actually go be an employee and work for someone. But that was the standard. So this is also makes a big difference in how much male involvement is in people's lives. Now with the modern employee kind of way to make money, you go work for a company for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, then that means that you won't see your family for most of the day. And that can cause problems, especially when the child has no other male influence in his life.
Yeah, yeah. Let me take
You know what
this.
they say? They
This.
say fathers keep sons out of jails and daughters off OnlyFans, right?
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree about American. There's an African proverb that loosely translates to whatever your parent don't teach you, you will be taught by the world. I totally agree. I totally agree, Melvin. That's so accurate. Like the life will hit you on your face with that truth. Like, yeah, I totally agree. Rumaisa became member of the channel. Welcome to the family, Rumaisa. Okay, I have another study which is showing that the Muslim birth rate is dropping in the major of the majority Muslim countries. The majority Muslim countries. I will show you here. Okay, can you see this? Okay, great. Let me show you this. Okay. Look at this, guys. That's very interesting. Which is here it's comparing the 1960s and 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, and 2015 in the biggest country, which is the majority is Muslims. Look at the birth rate. He started here with Algeria. Algeria. You're originally from Algeria, Mahdi, right?
Yes, my father's Algerian.
Okay. It was in the 60s, it's around like 7.5 kid per woman. Like imagine. Like
Jeez.
a small army. That's average. That's average. It is not like someone who's exception. No, that was very average to see like 8 women, eight
You know, I'll
babies,
tell you a
eight
story, a
kids.
quick story. We live in this area of Algeria called Harrach, Ludun. And there's these famous buildings called Samizon, which just means 5 houses, basically. It's very well known. If you speak to Algerian, he'll know it. It was built by the French. And underneath us, there was a family, Qabaili family. And 2-bedroom flat, okay? 15 children. I don't know
MashaAllah.
where they put them. Yeah. 2-bedroom flat, 15 kids. Mad.
MashaAllah. Girls and boys in the 2 bedrooms. Okay, let me get back here. Look what happens in the let's say in the 90s, in 2000, 2010, and after. There is a major drop from 8 children to less than 3 in Egypt as well, in Libya as well, Morocco as well, Tunisia as well, in Mali, in Niger, in Nigeria, in Gambia, in Senegal. All of these like have a majority of Muslim or like a high percentage as Muslim. They all dropped, especially Arab countries. Like it dropped from 8 to less than 3. So that's very common, and I have the numbers for United for the European Union. The fertility rate, the average fertility rate for immigrant Muslim is 2.54. For the immigrant Muslim is 2.54, which is good. But for the native Muslims, the European native Muslims, it's 1.66. That's horrible. Like that's horrible.
This extinction.
And I believe that happens because the immigrants they bring their culture with them. Like they are coming from high fertility countries, and they're starting having a lot of children. But after 1 or 2 generation, their sons and grandsons, they will adapt to the secular culture that they are living in, and they will start to have 1 or 2 kids with 1 dog and 3 cats.
You know, I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I can speak for Germany. I mean, Germany, I mean, these people, there's two things going on here. There's a fear of having children and there's a hostility towards children. You know, so when you tell people that, you know, you have like 5, 6 kids, whatever else, they literally look at you like you're nuts. They really think you're crazy. You know, they're like, what's wrong with you? It's easier to get a house or an apartment in Germany if you have 5 dogs than 5 kids. You know, I mean, I'm not even joking. I'm literally not joking. If you say I have 5 dogs, people let you rent the house. But if you say you have 5 kids, no one wants to hear it.
No,
You know, so it's really interesting to see why I don't understand that mentality or where it came from, because Germany used to be people that had like a high birth rate also up until the Second World War, and then it just sort of just disappeared. But to see that the Muslims are adapting this is also a bit weird. Also, you know, what I mean, one thing I can say this for sure is if anybody's out there watching this and it's like you're like, oh, I can't afford this and the other. As a guy who has 9 kids, let me tell you something. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard. You know, kids take so little stuff. My daughter's literally wearing my son's clothing, and nobody could tell, you know, blue, pink, whatever else. It doesn't even matter. You know, they're babies, whatever else, when they're small. This stuff is not like, you know, this isn't rocket science. You figured out basics of life, getting jobs, cars, whatever else, but you can't figure out, like, you know, how to take care of your own, you know, flesh and blood. Come on, guys.
and
You know,
when your sons, Abu American, when your sons are grown, like they can help you manage the younger brothers. Like I
yeah,
used to
they
do
do
that
also.
for my dad. Like you just give me a call and fix that. Like they have this problem in home, and he will keep going. Like never bother. I will fix
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what previous generations were thinking about children, because children were always associated with you're going to have more people helping, you know, because your son is going to be helping you. So you want to have as many children as possible, because literally, even if you're not religious, like for non-religious reasons, just for dunyawi reasons, you want to have
practical reasons.
Yeah, you're going to have another 2 hands that are going to help your life. But now things have gone backwards. Why is that, do you think?
I believe
That extended adolescence. Sorry.
Yes, totally agree, Abu American. They learn kids that you are a kid until you reach 19 or 18, while he's actually not a kid. Like from Islamic point of view, he's baligh, aqil, rashid, mukallaf after puberty, which is around like 15, 14, 16 like at most. So when you're baligh rashid, which is like you're adult from Islamic point of view, you have to be a man. Actually, like this is what man mean, like in Quran, which is rajul. الرجل هو الذكر البالغ, which is the adult male. Like after he hits puberty, you're supposed to call him a man, not a kid. So, but like that's what they bombard us with, this social engineering crap, that like she's still like she's still a kid, like she's still a baby. No, she's not a baby. She's 17.
There's also a culture of the parents, or they are the culture tells children when you reach 18 years old, you have to leave. You should leave your parents and go live somewhere else. You go to college, you starting your own life. And even if you can do it before that, like there are children who try to leave in their teens, and that's praised as well. Oh, look how independent minded the child is. So then there's, from a purely dunya perspective, there's no incentive to have children, because you're going to raise them for 13, 14, 18 years. And then where's the return on investment? There's no return on investment. They're just going to leave you. And then when you're old, they're not going to take care of you either. They're going to just put you in a nursing home. So there's no actual economic incentive to have children. Islam,
there's
on
no
the other
social
hand,
bonding.
Yeah, so this is a big contrast with Islam, and I think it partly explains that when Muslims start adopting these kinds of Western culture, liberal culture, and with the same style of life, the same expectations, the children are being raised as Westerners, they're going to leave at 18. So what's the incentive to have children? The fertility rate is going to continue to drop.
Very good. Very good.
About American, like I saw, you want to add for that?
I mean, no, I just want to say it's like, it's like Dan said, why is this happening? I mean, I think another thing is we've got. I mean, I know it's a tropism, but it's I think it's a correct one. Hard times create hard. Strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And I think we came from a time when it's like you said, it's like you were having children as a helper. There wasn't just anybody that could sit around and eat unless you were like an absolute baby. You couldn't just be an eater. You couldn't just hang out in the house and just snack on food and just chill around all day and in your PJs or whatever it is. That didn't exist. You had to actually do something. You had to bring something to the family. You had to be invested in the family, which is part of the problem nowadays also, is that people are afraid to put their kids to work and make their kids invest in the family. You need to invest in the family. What it's easy to walk away from a family you're not invested in. If you're not doing anything, if you're not putting any work, you're not putting any effort to make sure the household is being run, you won't have a clue how it's run. That's why we have so many irresponsible adults out there nowadays. They've become completely disconnected because of how easy everything is. And so it makes it easy, to just not have kids or walk away from it. I mean, there's a lot going on when we look at Western society, that on paper, sure, it looks great. But when we actually look at the practice and the execution, it's a hot mess. It's not working, obviously. And we really need to stop and think, hey, you know what? We need to go back to some of the old ways, and I'm not saying we need to bring in child labor or whatnot, and got kids like, making nails in the factory at 2 a.m. That's not what I'm saying. But, I think we need to make it a little bit more permissive, in our societies to treat our children as active members and responsible members of a society, even if it's on the micro level, not the macro level, and the micro level being the family. Because when he goes macro into the community or whatever else, no wonder they're disconnected from the world and they're out, burning down shops or whatever else. They don't have a connection to themselves and their families. How are they going to have a connection to their communities and the people and the society and the culture around them? It's just, it's a whole mess. It's a chain reaction of crap from top to bottom. It makes it very easy not to want to have children.
Yeah, it does make sense. Let me take this super chat. Abdul Jabbar, €5. Thank you, Akhi. The steady decline of sperm count in the West, beginning in the early 2000s, is like a very important part of this trend. Daniel talked about this. Okay, I talked about this like in a whole episode in my the awareness pill program. There is two major factors for that, which is the luxury life that men's live in these days, like lack of physical activity and taking risk behavior. That's that's one that's one of the major factors. The other one is the chemicals that we eat and consume around us, on a daily basis, that fall off chemicals acting like estrogen in our bodies and inhibit our testosterone production and desensitize the testosterone receptors in the male body. For whoever want to have a lot of information about that, I recommend you guys to read Estrogeneration for Anthony J. Estrogeneration is a great book. There is around 10 categories play a big role in the decline of the testosterone, and the sperm count will follow actually. So you will know where to find the phytoestrogens, which is estrogens from planet, from plastic, from other stuff. So you will understand what harm you as a man and affect your sperm count and the testosterone level. Daniel, go ahead if you want to add about that.
No, that's great. I mean, where these kind of changes to the hormones in people's body, that will have a big effect on how many children that they have. And also another factor is the increased testosterone in women. Women also are gaining testosterone. So women are becoming more manly. And this is indicated by different things like the tone of voice, like the pitch of women's voices are getting more and more lower Like they have more of a deeper voice. The women. But this is creating women who are more aggressive. They're more aggressive. They are women who want to take more risks. They want to go and conquer the world. So they're going to be less inclined to have children.
Feminists, by the way, have higher testosterone level than average women. Do you know that?
Makes sense.
Oh God.
No. So it makes complete sense. The hormone levels have a big effect on behavior.
Yeah.
And
vice versa,
also,
by the way.
But there's also another, like, the interesting thing is that hormones will affect behavior, but behavior can also affect hormones. So they show that men who engage in more domestic activities, like cooking, changing diapers, taking care of children, their testosterone drops. They goes off the cliff.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, they'll keep tell you like to be a good man, you have to help. You have to do the chores. You have to change diapers. You have to clean the dishes. You have to do all of that will make you like a weak beta, you know. Do not do it, guys. Do not do it. Actually, the probability of asking for divorce increase by more than 30% if the man was sharing the chores with his wife. I have a full study on that. Like most of men who used to share the housework with their women, most of them ended in divorce, because that's very unattractive to the female nature from psychological point of view. Unconsciously, she will enjoy, I'd be attracted if she saw you doing a manly thing, like fixing your car, cutting the woods, carrying some weights, doing some heavy stuff. Like that will attract her. But like cleaning dishes, when you're, as Americans always say, when you're Khalid from accounting and going back home, cleaning dishes and cooking like some food, you're putting softness over softness.
Yep.
Go ahead, Abu American.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of people don't like him, but Rollo Tomasi, I think he coined the term chore play.
Tomorrow on my channel, guys.
Chore play. It's like, it's not it's not sexy, guys. It's not sexy. I mean, women will say they like to see the guy washing the dishes or whatever else, but they're doing over, lumberjack Joe, cutting wood, on TikTok or something. That's what they're looking at, while you're in there, waxing your plates or whatever you do that stuff. I just, no. It makes sense that would affect your testosterone. I'd probably be, really low testosterone. How could you not be low? I'm sorry, I'm going to rant now, guys. How could you not be low testosterone the moment you pick up some plates and start washing them? I'd feel miserable. I mean, why am I in my house with my woman here and I'm washing dishes? I ain't sexist or anything, but it's like, what am I doing? I'd be miserable. My testosterone would crash, obviously.
Hang that punching bag and smash it.
Right, that's it right there. That's why I tell guys, what do I always tell guys on my channel? Get into a combat sport. It doesn't have to be your life, but make it part of your life. Make it a part of what you do in your rotation in your life. Get in a combat sport. You want to raise your testosterone, be manly and stuff. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Mahdi, you have something.
There is, subhanAllah, there is an unflattering reality when dealing with women. I had one sister say to me once. She said to me, what's wrong with a man being submissive towards his wife? And I said to her, this is what's wrong with it. She said, I said to her, first of all, why do you want that? She said, it's nice. I said, why is it nice? Because you're in control? She said, yeah. I said, but you don't want to be in control. And this is the problem. You think you want to because you get to do what you want to do, right? I can go here, I can go there, I can do this, I can do that, and the third. The problem is the price for that is you lose desire for your husband. Okay? We don't have that problem. But my wife is submissive to me, I love her, and I desire her even more. That's a you problem. You guys got that problem, which means the natural fitrah is for the husband to be in the dominant and the woman to be submissive towards him. Now, you might not like what comes with that. Oh, I have to listen to him, and sometimes he tells me to do things, and it's annoying. It is what it is. That's the game. And by the way, men also have to be submissive to other men. In the workplace, there's a hierarchy. You can't go around doing what you want in the workplace. And there's always a hierarchy. There's always a hierarchy. So don't think, oh, that's not fair. No. Someone has to be steering the ship. Too many cooks spoil the broth. And for the way that it works for a woman to maintain her attraction to a man is for him to be in that position, even if there are certain things about it that you don't like. Guess what? In the workplace, there might be certain elements of a man being in a submissive position towards his boss, and it is, we have to speak frankly here, the boss is the boss, and if you don't like something that the boss has said, you have to deal with it. It is what it is. That's the way society functions.
I think the average, woman who's healthy, emotionally and psychologically, they want a dominant man. I think that's pretty normal. I just, what I think it is, we live in a time and an era when there are so many men out there that they don't want to actually have them showing dominance over them. Meaning they're like mostly unattractive type of guys. When it's really unattractive, it can be personality. Women have more attraction markers than men. Men, we just like, oh, it's a beautiful girl. And, women, they've got a whole bunch of other stuff going on, inside their mind. So I think it's a matter of that, also, that all the attraction markers aren't there that she's looking for. All the boxes aren't ticked. And it's like, so I'm definitely not. What you want me to do? What you whatever? How about you go wash the dishes? And it sort of brings out that resistance, that angry resistance in them. When specific men, come at them with that like whole submissive thing. She's like, I ain't gonna be submissive to this guy. But then at the same time, some other guy she will. She'll gladly and readily do it.
I feel that like that's from the Black American culture about American, which is, I ain't you slave. What about you do your stuff? Like,
Black American culture is a whole other topic. It's just, oh my gosh, Allahu Akbar. That's like, that's a hot mess. I don't know if we want to go there.
They have a lot of masculine females.
They have a whole lot of masculine females.
Yeah. Okay, the big question here, which is like we're coming to the family value in Islam, but what if, and this question for you, Daniel, what if the Muslim woman said to her husband, like, I had one kid, like that was a horrible experience, or that has got me a lot of pain, and like that's affecting my job. I don't think I can get more one or two. First of all, I know he have other options, but what do you say to the woman that she says one is enough or two is enough? Like I don't need more than two. Like that affects my work, that affects my career. Like, no, I'm good with two or one.
Well, if it's a career that she wants to go back to, I mean, why did he allow that in the first place? Like wasn't there a prior conversation to be had? Like, when I marry someone, I want to know, what's your priority in life? Your career, or you want to be a mother of children and raise good Muslims? What's your priority? So in the first place, he shouldn't have married a woman who was going to prioritize her career. That's the mistake happened in the first place. But let's say that it wasn't like that. Originally, she had wanted to have many kids. And then the first one was very difficult, as it usually is. Actually, it's usually a difficult process when you don't know exactly what to suspect, or you don't have family support. It can be difficult. So you should just be very open and communicate. Okay, why is it difficult? What can we do to make it better? How can we improve the situation? Should we move closer to family? Should we bring family to live closer to us? Maybe your family, my family. Just anything that happens in a marriage has to be based on having all the cards on the table, so to speak. You have to know all of the, what she is feeling, what you're feeling, what's possible, so that you can make an informed decision. There's no jabr, like you can't force her in this, because it's just going to cause bigger problems when children are involved. So I think that you have to reframe, the conversation. Like, okay, yes, it was hard this time. Doesn't mean it'll be hard the second time or the third time or the fourth time. And what can we do to make it better? What have we learned that we can do differently? How can we solve the situation? Maybe we need to make more dua. We need to have more tawakkul. We need to, I think that there's many things that you can say in that situation to convince. Because if you have a healthy marriage where she respects you as the husband, and she is obeying you, she has the ta'ah, the obedience to you, then you can lead her and you can help her understand and speak to her in a very clear way in order to get her on thinking in the right way.
What do you think, guys, about American?
I mean, I have from a different angle.
Have you ever have this like this in your marriages?
No, not personally. Which was coming to my point. If you're doing things the way you're supposed to be doing, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing as a man. In general, again, when we're dealing with emotionally and physically and psychologically healthy women, if you're a man that's doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you understand there's no days off and all that type of stuff, generally a woman's gonna have baby rabies for you. In general, she's gonna want to have your kids.
You'll have that desire, yeah.
This is a very good point you make, Abu American. Is it possible that a lot of women don't want to have more than one or two kids because perhaps they are not on some consciousness very attracted to their husband in the first place? They don't want to perpetuate his seed.
After some conversations in terms of one-to-one consultations, I 100% believe this.
Subhanallah.
Generally when you find that a woman doesn't want to have the kids of her partner, she doesn't have. There's multiple things at play here. She doesn't think he's attractive, or she doesn't think he's capable, which is unattractive. It's a type of. So she's like, if I have another kid, I'm gonna have more work. I'm gonna have to go to work. I'm gonna have to bring in money because he's not bringing in money. Or it's just like this guy right here. I'm gonna give this guy here another kid.
Or she's not sure, Mahdi. She's not sure that he's capable of taking care of her, and for example, 4 babies. So she's not really sure that he can handle it. So she don't want to take the risk because that will take the share of her children and herself. Like if, for example, if he's getting $2,000 per month and he have 2 kids and he can handle it, and he want more 2 kids, so that's the same amount. Women will calculate it by this way. Like, this is stupid, but they will do it. So they will calculate it that the same amount will go for more 2 people. That mean we have less quality of life based on the amount that he's spending. So no, that's not a good idea. I rather have like a good quality life rather than more babies with less quality of life.
Gentlemen, you have to forgive me. I need to make a move. I've got a few things to do before I finish for the night. Jazakumullah khair. Coach Kareem, Brother Daniel, Abu American, lovely to be sharing the platform with you guys again.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for the invite as well. I very much appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
I'm gonna take some medication and call it night. My head is starting to really, it's just throbbing here, inshallah.
ربنا يشافيك أبو أمريكان.
آمين. جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Okay, getting back. How are you on time, like Daniel? Do you have like more time?
Just like 9 minutes.
Okay.
9 minutes I have to go.
Great. The last topic is the family value in Islam, like, because a lot of people will tell you that it is not necessary to have a lot of kids, or it's not necessary to have kids. Like, I saw some Muslim guys and girls telling me that I want to get married, I want to have the emotional connection and like to have fun and all the romance and like this stuff, but I'm not really interested in having kids. So let's talk from Islamic point of view. Are we obligated to reproduce لنتكاثر?
No, there's not. It's not wajib in the sense that you'll be sinful if you do
it's
not.
not fard ayn, you mean?
Yeah, it's not fard ayn, or sometimes in some madhahib, wajib and fard ayn mean obligatory. So it's not necessarily obligatory for the Muslim to have children, but it's something that's highly encouraged. And so it's possible, I mean, that someone doesn't have desire at all. I mean, in the past, again, when there wasn't the same kind of birth control, having kids, if you have desire, and not everyone does, not everyone has shahwa, then you're going to reproduce. You're going to have children just on the basis of that shahwa. And if you have a normal timetable for your marriage, when you're close to puberty, you get married, you start, being intimate with opposite sex, that's going to lead to children. You're going to have this 8-9 children with your wife. That's normal. But now that there's birth control, people have shahwa and they're not reproducing. So this is causing problems. But women generally,
pure pleasure.
Yeah, just pure pleasure. There's nothing wrong with that. It's only wrong because it's going to lead to the collapse of society if no one has children, and the fertility rate goes below the 2.1, as you mentioned. So yeah, Muslims are falling into this too. But women, even so for men, they may or may not have the desire for the progeny, for having offspring. So it's not normal. Men, I think, have this. They want to have children. Course. They want to take care. They have the fatherness. Yeah. So that's an instinct that a normal, healthy person has. But if you're living in a sick society and you've become sick and your testosterone has also been impacted, then maybe some people, they don't actually have this father instinct. But women have definitely the mother instinct to a great extent. And if they're healthy and they're psychologically healthy, then they'll want to have children, especially when they get in their 20s. And if they've been ignoring their motherly instinct since, their late teens, then
in the
early
danger
20s,
zone, in the danger zone area. Yeah, they'll start like the biological fertility clock will start like ticking
very loudly. Yeah. So so that the way that Allah has created us is with these kinds of natural mechanisms that will ensure that most people have children, and not just one child or two children, but many children. So that's what's natural. What the modern world has created is an unnatural, like Frankenstein monster. That's what many people are now. They're like Frankenstein. They're not actually natural, true human beings.
Yeah. There is a hadith, I don't know if you heard it or not, which is تكاثروا فإني مباهم بكم الأمم يوم القيامة, which is some of the scholars says it is ضعيف, some of the scholars say it's hasan, but like the context of the hadith go with the flow with the rest of the seerah, which is we have to reproduce, actually, because if we do not reproduce, and I say as social obligation, like towards ummah in general, and I'm not saying it's fard ayn, like as we clarified before, me and Daniel, we're not saying it's fard ayn on every single one. No, like that's general obligation, social obligation to the Islamic ummah to have 3 or more children for the growth of the ummah in general. Like if you can do it, if you can handle it, do it, because that's better for you, for your wife, and for your like family, extended family, country, and the ummah, the Islamic ummah as whole. Like that will benefit Islam and will benefit the whole society.
Yeah, think about it like this. Think about it like how much encouragement have the previous 2 generations of Muslims given to their children to go study science and become doctors and engineers. How much encouragement, how much effort has the Muslim ummah put into this idea that your children need to become doctors and engineers. They were fine, and always the explanation or the justification is this is for the benefit of the ummah. We want to help the ummah with more doctors, with more engineers. This is something very good. Therefore, I'm going to make sure my daughter becomes a doctor. I'm going to make sure my son becomes an engineer. But where's the encouragement for your children to also have many children? Where's the resources to put into supporting your children so that they can have children? Where is the encouragement from imams? How often do you hear? I don't hear it in America very often. For imams preaching, you need to get married young. You need to have children. Especially this message needs to be given to women, to Muslim women. It's not being given here or very few are preaching this message that you need to get married early and have children. Instead, it's be activist, become very good in politics, go study journalism, go get a PhD, go be a doctor, so that's how you can benefit the ummah. But this is not where do we see the encouragement from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for these kinds of fields or this kind of push for your daughters? No, the push from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to marry and have children.
Exactly. And by the way, I want to mention some numbers from Sahaba life. You see that like I shared it before, Danny. I don't know if you noticed it or not, guys. That will shock you, because we don't know much about from sociological point of view. We don't know a lot about Sirat, which is Prophet companion sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahaba. This numbers is about Sahaba, which is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He had 4 wives. Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab, he got 14 wives. Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan got 9 wives. Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib, he got 9. Sayyidina Talha bin Ubaidillah, he got 9 wives. Sayyidina Al-Zubayr bin Al-Awwam, he got 6 wives. Sayyidina Abdul Rahman bin Auf, he got 20 wives. Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah, he got 70. And Sayyidina Al-Hasan bin Ali, radiyallahu anhu, it's estimation between 70 and 90 wives. And here I'm talking about wives, not concubines. I'm talking about wives. Okay? And Khalid bin Walid, radiallahu anhu, he got 9 wives and unknown number of concubines with 40 kids, 40 children. So if you want to know about how Sahaba was acting on this subject, on getting married and having kids, that's their way of living. They was marrying a lot because they can, like it's not obligatory on everyone. They can, so they married a lot, and they had a lot of children. I'll give you like a small example. I would like to hear from you, Daniel. My 2 grandfathers, they used to be 4 person: grandfather, grandmother, grandfather, grandmother, in the 40s. From my mom's side, they got 10, like who lived from them, like who lived like a long life, around 10. From my father's side, they got 11. Nowadays, like 4, they used to be 4 person in the 40s. Now they have grandchildren and children is over than 100. That's like a small, like on a smaller scale, how the ummah growth. 4 person now, like after 60, 70 years, they are 100. But imagine if every one of them, like nowadays the Muslims in Europe especially, like they're having 2 kids, like 4, they will have 4, and the 4 will marry, and they will have 4, and they will have 4. Like after 10 generations, the 4 will be 4. Like, what is that? And that's if everybody got married, and every one of them got children. So the 4 will be 4 after 100 years. Like, what are you doing? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to lead to the extinction of a lot of people if it continues, because entire peoples, Europe, if the demographics continue at this rate, they're going to be extinct. This is why they have to bring in immigrants for a lot of the work that they need to be done in these countries. But yeah, and the sad thing is Muslims following the same path and reducing their numbers. Like I mentioned, my grandfather had 20 children from 3 wives. So yeah, and that was not that unusual in Iran. This is in Iran.
Yeah.
So
you have a lot of uncles and aunts, huh?
So many.
Mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah. But but we see depopulation, we see AI, we see robotics now that are trying to replace people with machines. So that's another factor for how the future economy is going to change. But we'll see what happens in the next 5 years as these technologies become more advanced and they start using, instead of people for workers, they have robots or they have AI.
Yeah, but that's little bit long term. Like, it's not in the next 5-10 years. Like,
I think it is.
I'm very no. I'm like, I did like a very deep researches about the AI capabilities and the expectation in the near future. Like, even if they have the model, like, they need around 20 to 25 years to apply it on a mass level. Like, even if they have the idea and like theoretically, or they got like a model which is like
it's
good.
not a model. They have the actual robots. So
I know, but it's very limited.
Self-driving trucks, for example, you'll eliminate all truck drivers. You eliminate all taxi drivers with self-drive. And this is not like theoretical. They have the self-driving trucks, like the big commune, and they have the self-driving cars. That eliminates a huge part of the workforce. Self-driving planes.
Yeah, but
you can have
we have
Amazon
that since 1998. By the way,
no.
Like, I'm really deep into cars, especially like Mercedes have self-driving cars since 98.
I have to check that.
But it's still projects. Like, they cannot apply it on a mass level. Like, until now, like Tesla, since almost 11 or 12 years, they have self-driving like autopilot, but they can't apply it. It's so dangerous. Like, they will advise you that do not turn it on like without your hands on the wheel. Like, do not.
Yeah, I think that it's maybe 5-10 years is not too crazy of an estimate. Even with Amazon and what they're implementing in their warehouses for packages, and they have a lot of automation now.
Yeah, in Dubai they have 100% store. I know.
Yeah, so that's the implementation that I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, that's very small scale. Like, they are not replacing, for example, 40% or 50% of the human working force. Like, that's very long time. Like, to reach that level, it's
so. How many years do you think?
What's like, I believe it's never gonna be anything before 20 to 30 years.
20-30 years is not. That's in our lifetime. So that's not very long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but when people talk about AI, they think like within the next 3 or 4 years, everybody gonna sit in home because robots is working for like instead of them. Like,
no, that's not what I'm talking about. I think that it's being rolled out now, and it's going to be accelerated within the next 10 years. This is according to World Economic Forum. This is according to some of these global economic experts that they're predicting the future. So the rollout is already taking place, but within our lifetime, it might be the case where a large portion of the workforce has been replaced with automation.
Yeah, you have to take under consideration the new professions that already opened, like which is never existed before. for new people. Like it is right that some work are like being done by robots, but there's a new jobs that's been created that need men, that need people like human. For example, in the AI factories, and like for the programmers, developers, and like the researchers, like all of that field, like 20 years ago, it never existed, or not as now. So there's a lot of things, is like there's advantages and disadvantages, and like you have to take under consideration the both to take like to get a conclusion that we don't need kids anymore. Like that's
No, I
very
wasn't.
risky. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to make that conclusion, but
Yeah, I'm not talking about you, like for who have that proposition.
yeah, that's a good point. I have to go now, so Jazakallah
Yeah, yeah,
khairan.
yeah. Barakallah fiqh. Anything like anything you want to advertise, like any new debates, like for the people?
Yeah, I'm working on scheduling a debate that should be good, inshallah, for next month. So
That's gonna be a surprise.
yeah, because it hasn't been confirmed yet, so I don't want to. Once it's confirmed, I'll announce it. But it's because the guy might back out, so that's the problem. If he backs out, then people will be spreading the wrong message or the wrong information. So I'll wait till he confirms it and then advertise it, inshallah.
Great. Keep tuned, guys. Barakallah fiqh, Akhi Daniel. Thank you for joining us. Like, hope we can collaborate as Muslim content creator more and more, inshallah, to do some good things for the audience. Everybody, like brother Daniel and Abu American and Mahdi, links are in the description, guys. Like you can follow them, visit their websites, like follow their channels. And thank you very much. Barakallah fik, Akhi Daniel, and barakallah fikum jami'an. Like who didn't like the video, come on, smash the like button. جزاكم الله خيرا جميعا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.